You're listening to Accounted For, the Canadian podcast that explores the intangibles of every career. I'm your host, Daniel Lee. Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back to Accounted For. This is the podcast on a mission to expand your perspectives, question the status quo, and get you inspired to action for your own career. This podcast is part of OMD Ventures, my platform focused on building systems to optimize human performance. And as many of you listeners who are regulars know, this is a media platform that includes not only the podcast, but also a blog, a newsletter, and much more. And the platform continues to grow. So if you want to stay on top of everything, I would recommend signing up to the weekly newsletter. You'll get a nice email every Sunday that includes everything from the weekly developments, including the essays and the podcast episodes, as well as any new developments happening and the daily learnings that I have every day. And this is very exclusive to the newsletter subscribers. It used to be fully public, but now I've made it exclusive. So if you don't want to miss out, I would highly recommend signing up. You can just go to omdventures.com/stakeholder. And in that page, you'll also have an option to donate a cup of coffee to me as well. If you really love what you're hearing with Accounted For, as well as what you see on the platform, I would really appreciate it. It helps support the growth of the platform as well. So, enough about me. Today's guest is Drew Green. Drew is the CEO of Indochino. Indochino is a Vancouver-based bespoke suit company, and it's actually where yours truly got his first bespoke suit as well. And there's a bit of Vancouver pride involved in this as well. And yeah, that's, once again, enough about me. So how does one become the CEO of a fast-growing suit company? Well, Drew started his journey as a kinesiology student with a love for basketball. So this is very far away from a passionate love with suits at a young age. He immediately took an entrepreneurial path to starting a personal training business right out of university, and he later sold it to travel the world and later on entered into the world of technology companies. A material influence to Drew's unique career journey has been Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. It's a fiction book like no other, and I personally love this book as well. And we go through the various elements of the book that influenced Drew on his journey and how it also changed or might have continued to influence his current philosophies on business and life. Though this was a short interview, we try to traverse through the very windy journey Drew went through, from his athletic years to the various technology companies he helped operate, as well as co-found on his own, as well as his now current focus, which is Indochino. And we try to go through all the little nooks and crannies of decision points that really made his career what it is right now. So I hope my chat with Drew expands your perspective as you question the default and really inspires action. All right, enjoy the conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to Accounted For. Today on the podcast we have Drew Green. Hey Drew, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Drew here is the CEO of Indochino. And so Drew, for our audience who may not be familiar with the company Indochino, how would you describe what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, Indochino is the largest custom apparel brand in the world. We started the company 12 years ago, and we're a digitally native brand at the time. And, over the past 4 years have really accelerated the business quite a bit. We now have 46 showrooms across North America, all launched within the last 4 years. And obviously a very, very big online business drives about 68% of our business. We deliver to 100 countries, but our primary focus is Canada, the U.S., and we just recently launched in Australia. But, we're building a global brand, and we're really proud of the fact that we're one of the fastest growing brands globally right now in terms of apparel brands. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting, pretty fun.
Yeah, and it's based out of my hometown here in Vancouver as well.
Yeah. I love Vancouver, man. It's not my hometown. I'm from Scarborough, but I love Vancouver. It's just an awesome place. Great place to raise my boys, and yeah, it's just a fantastic city.
Oh yeah, I tell people that it's a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're starting out a career in, but that's debatable from different perspectives. But like Indochino, I think
we're hiring.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if people are interested, want to move to Vancouver, sign up. But yeah, like I think. Yeah, I've got to say, I think Indochino was the first bespoke suit that I bought as well. I bought it like back when Indochino didn't have a footprint in Toronto. It was like a pop-up showroom, and I knew it from back home, and I thought, oh wow, it's here now. And so that's when I got my first, I guess, bespoke tailoring suit. But I read an interview where you talked about how Indochino is really focused on trying to change and reimagine how bespoke tailoring works. So what's the difference from before and now?
Well, I mean, bespoke, custom, tailored apparel is not new, right? It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. For many of those hundreds of years, it was really only available to, the elite, right? The kings, the queens, the professionals, etc., and was just sort of out of reach to most from an affordability standpoint. And so, a big part of our vision is to make it available to everyone, and to create a high quality, perfectly fitted, totally personalized, totally custom, really one of a kind garment at a very affordable price. And so, for us, that's been the key to our success. We are the largest, and I think, we are really leading a charge of what I believe is the future of apparel, which is going to be personalized and custom clothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I was coming here to do the interview, I kind of imagined that the entire office would be decked out and people with beautiful suits, and I thought you would be at the pinnacle of the end.
Right.
Here we have you in some nice casual clothes and a New York Yankees hat.
There we go.
And I think like when I came into your office, I saw all this. I think hockey, baseball, basketball memorabilia.
Got
some baseball on TV, and so it seems that sports has been a very big part of your life, like just all throughout. Like you started out in kinesiology at York University.
Yep.
You said you grew up in Scarborough. You played varsity basketball at York. How much of an influence was sports growing up?
Well, I mean, first of all, with the office, we've got a lot of great people here at headquarters. We've got about 800 employees now. It's pretty amazing, and I'm just really grateful to all the employees that we have. But we don't have a dress code, and I just want people to be comfortable. We do have a dress-up day, and
I love that.
You would catch me in a suit most days, but not today. So, and no disrespect for that. But to your question, I mean, sports has been an intricate part of my life, right? Like I grew up, single parent. And just the best woman in the world, my mother, Catherine Harshaw, raised me, teacher. We grew up in a fairly, I'll call it rough area in Scarborough, West Hill initially, and then we moved up to northern Scarborough. And we just, I didn't have a lot, right? We didn't have much other than ourselves and, what we could participate in. And I think the thing that I'm grateful for the most about that time, besides my mom and my grandparents, is really the teachers that provided, these extracurricular opportunities, basketball. There was a time in my life for over 10 years where I played basketball pretty much every day, right? Sometimes 2 hours and sometimes 10. And, great coaches, and some of my best friends even to this day are guys that, I played with, won championships with, went to all-star games with. And so sports was really, really an important part of my life. And, frankly, I think is part of the success that I've had, right? Like I learned how to work hard. I learned how to win, how to be part of a team, how to play a role in a team, but also to lead a team. And I kind of look back at it, and I think if I didn't have sports the way that I had it, I certainly wouldn't have learned, some of the things that are important, for example, being a CEO, right, or being a leader. And so I'm just very grateful. And it is a big part of my life. And, I think that's not why we're doing it here. I mean, I've run many businesses. I've started many businesses, specifically to Indochino. And I did an interview earlier this morning about it, actually. Guys love sports, and so do women. Right now we, primarily sell to men. But guys also love suits. Guys also love to dress well. And, about 3 years ago, we started testing with the New York Yankees, and that test went really well, and that turned into a multi-year agreement. And of course, we had to bring in their arch rival, and they're now the official apparel brand of the Red Sox. And, just recently, and then going back to my roots, Rowan Barrett was a bit of a legend in Scarborough, right? And he's a couple years older than me, but definitely played against him and played with him on an all-star team. And, he was just incredible, and somebody I've always, admired and sort of watched from afar. And he, when his son, the opportunity came up and he, declared to be a professional, his son, and there was an opportunity to work with his son, we grabbed that. And so, we've got a multi-year agreement with RJ Barrett, Rowan's son,
wow,
as one of our signature athletes. And so, we're going to keep going here. I mean, our media budget is a 8-figure media budget. We will be in and around 6% of that media budget towards sports marketing. Mm. And I think if we continue to see the progress that we're seeing, we'll definitely, consider increasing that.
Mm-hmm. And so while you were in school, you did kinesiology. So you studied and, focused on sports, you played sports, and right after that, you started your own personal training business.
Wow, you know quite a bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not a hard man to learn more about. You've done so many interviews.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, like it makes sense. Like, sports is a big part, and you're doing personal training, and then you decide to sell the business and go traveling. Like, I think you sold it for like $100,000, and you traveled the world.
A little bit more than that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, my story from that, I'm an entrepreneur by necessity, right? I have always worked hard, but in university, playing basketball, and no scholarships at the time. I had scholarships to other schools, but wanted to stay in Toronto. My mom had just had open heart surgery and wanted to be home and make sure that I was there. And I couldn't afford school, right? And it wasn't a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Tuition in Canada is affordable, but it was a good amount of money. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, transportation and food and everything else, it adds up. And so there was no way that I could just do school and play basketball and, think that was okay. I'd end up with, tens of thousands, if not close to $100,000 in debt. And so what I did instead was, I had a passion for exercise, obviously working out a lot myself. So I got my certification and was taking kinesiology, obviously. And, I tried personal training, and I loved it, right? Like, I was dealing with, successful people that I was learning a ton from, actors, actresses, lawyers, doctors, CEOs, and a lot of them became my friends. And, as the business grew, I started hiring trainers and, opened a facility. And then, we ended up selling that business. And the honest truth is that I was pretty burnt out, right? I mean, at the end of school, I had, I was waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, training clients for 3 hours, as well as my other trainers training clients, going to school, going to practice, then training again for another 2-3 hours. And so my days were just constant, right? And so at the end of it all, I was just like, wow, when a time when most people are sort of thinking about what they're going to do with their career or start a business, I just needed to take some time. And, I had this book that influenced my life and still does, that talked about the journey, right? It's called The Alchemist. And, the importance of, leaving home and discovering the world and, going after your dreams. But most importantly, I took away the importance of discovering the world and really, getting out of your comfort zone and leaving home. And that's what I did, right? I went, got on a flight, and 24 hours later was in Australia, and, was there for quite some time. And then I ended up living in Singapore, and, couldn't come home without a few good weeks in Ireland, where I'm from. So, or my family's from. So, it was just an incredible experience. I think it was in about 25 countries, over that 1.5 year period. And, again, I'm 45 now. There's no way, I have 2 kids that I want to spend every minute with. I have, lots and lots of work to do every day. And so there's no way that I could travel like that. Like, there's just no way. Yeah. So it's a special memory, and it was a special opportunity.
So then I'm guessing that when you were in Ireland, you went to the Guinness factory. You must have gone.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
I'm not a big beer guy. Actually,
Yo, you're not.
I don't drink beer.
But you're Irish.
I know what the heck is going on. No, I don't drink beer. Lots and lots of different stuff I did. I spent New Year's in Galway, which is a memory I'll always kind of cherish. That was just a crazy, crazy night. And then the next day we were on horses, right on the water. And it was just amazing few weeks in Ireland. I love it. And then I spent a couple weeks in Paris, a couple weeks in London. And then it was time, right? Wow. Time to come back.
Yeah.
So.
And you mentioned The Alchemist, and Paulo Coelho's book, Alchemist, it's definitely one of my favorite books as well.
Good,
and it's funny, these kinds of books, like for the listeners who are not familiar, it's one of those must-read books that kind of, I think it's probably like timeless, I would say. It's like one of those perennial bestsellers. And I found that it comes to me at times when like I need it, and it just kind of falls on your lap. I think I finished the entire book in a day.
Yeah,
a day
you can.
And a half. Yeah,
for sure.
It's a short read, but you just get so immersed in it. And my books is filled with like margin notes everywhere. And I think you mentioned that, I think in the past interview, that you've read it probably like 1,000 times or something.
Probably close to, man. Close to.
And so like these books, as you constantly read it over again, I think a really good book, you learn something new each time you read it. So how has that kind of message changed? Like what, from the first time you read it in like 1995, I think you got the book, to like when you read it now, what are some lessons that you continuously keep hold of, and what are some new ones that you've kind of realized now?
Yeah, I think I got the book actually about 25 years ago, and the legend has it that my dad sent me that book unaddressed, so I didn't know it was from him until years later. But so it's a good question, right? It's a really good question, because when you read it and you're that age, like when you're 20 years old and you read this book, there's captivating passages and parts of the book that you pick out, and you think about right away. But as you get older, you actually see them form and you see them come true, right? And so, a great example, of reading the book the first time versus reading it, last month. If you remember that time where he, was in the bar or the restaurant, and he trusted someone and they took his, precious stones, right? It's all he had, right? He only had, something, or he only had this one valuable pouch of things. And so they took it all, and it was gone. And there he was, far, far away from home. Could have given up, could have gone back home. But instead, he worked for, the crystal maker, right? That crystal shop, and made tea, he made crystal, and then he ended up selling tea. So he made that business better. But he could have given up, man. Like, it was, somebody took something from him, and it was, it was kind of like he had to show resilience, right? He had to persevere. And that resilience and that perseverance led to an amazing next step, right? And so, for example, like when you read that 25 years ago, oh, that's kind of cool, right? Like you don't understand the magnitude or the importance of resilience, I don't think, at 20 years old. But you certainly, as an entrepreneur especially, understand that, at 35, at 40, at 45, at 30, whatever age. I mean, I think one of the greatest skills you can develop, and certainly I work on it with my boys, is resiliency, right? And persevering. And, it's not like anybody stole their precious stones, but nothing in life ever goes exactly as you want or exactly as you planned. And you're going to hit tough times, and people are going to do bad things to you, but you can either let it, define you, and retreat and run away, or you can push through, man, and make it great. And, and there's just so many of those types of things. I'll just give you another quick one. I know this is a long answer to your one question, but, there's times in my life where there's so much going on, right? You've got so much work to do. And you're so caught up in all the things that you have to do, and you forget to enjoy, right? And it's really important. Another passage from The Alchemist, if you remember, when, the king gives him a spoon with oil on it, and he says, "Go see my kingdom." And he goes around and he comes back, and don't spill a drop of oil. And he goes around and he brings the spoon back, and he didn't drop any oil. He was proud, but he didn't see the kingdom. He didn't enjoy the journey. He didn't, he did as he was told, but he forgot to enjoy the day, enjoy the moment, enjoy the week. And, even now I kind of sometimes just step back a little bit and say, whoa, not so serious, man. Like you gotta really enjoy this time, like creating what we've created here. There's amazing days and then there's tough moments. But you gotta enjoy every day. You gotta be grateful for that time and for that journey.
Mm-hmm. And this, spoiler alert for people who've not read the book, but
I know, right?
The main character goes on a search to find the treasure, his personal legend, and he eventually finds it. He finds his treasure. For you, do you feel like you've found a treasure, or have you felt that you found a treasure in multiple moments in your life and you realize maybe this isn't it?
I know this is gonna sound corny, man, but like I feel like my family is my treasure, so I found it, man. Like I'm good. I think my sons, my wife, the journey that we take together, the times that we spend together. My boys are only 11 and 13, but they've got these massive dreams, these massive goals. And they're just working their butt off. And, they're my treasure. I mean, I can't think of one other thing that I want that would be any better than what I already have. From a business perspective, I've always been very, very goal-oriented. And that served me pretty well. And I've got some pretty big goals for the next 55 years. So we'll see what happens.
I love that. I love that 55-year.
Well, I'm living till I'm 100. Just spoiler alert for everybody out there. I'm living till I'm 100. So.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, like I think one of my idols is Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway, and that man's working. I think he's 96 now, but he's still giving talks. Can't see out of one eye or 1.5 eyes now, but yeah,
it's amazing, right?
Yeah, and that's the kind of admirable quality I want to eventually potentially have, where I'll be working till I drop dead or something like that.
Well, yeah, I've had this conversation with a few people throughout the years, and I think the more you can have, like, I think one of the keys to life is having goals, right? Is having ambitions and things you want to achieve, and those things can be, modest goals, like, hey, I want to walk through the Amazon, whatever the goals are, but sometimes the bigger the goal you have, the more, focused on it you are, and the more you can really just, I think, even live longer, right? I just quick personal story. My grandfather, he was one of my best friends. He's an amazing man, George Harshaw. He worked till he was 79, right? It was part-time work, but he's still working. And within 6 months of his retirement, quote unquote, his retirement, when he actually stopped working, he had a stroke. And I always sort of think about that, and I'm like, man, I wonder if he kept working. Would he have been okay? Right? And I don't know. Nobody knows the answer. Nobody's going to be able to prove that. But your example of, men that are in their 90s still doing their thing, kind of leads me to believe you got to always, keep dreaming.
Oh yeah, I think there's actual scientific evidence of just constant stress, like stress in learning, stress in doing things, to actually aid the body and actually having a proper aging process.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. I haven't heard that. I've heard, you always hear and read about the detriments of stress, right, on your health. But I kind of agree with that assessment. I think stress kind of keeps you up.
Oh, yeah. It's scientifically, it's hormesis. It's just same with weightlifting. You apply stress, you get stronger. That's right. You build muscle by breaking muscle. So that's in the first place.
I like it.
Yeah,
I'm in.
And so for you, you've had this very athletic background, and you went on a trip, you saw the world, and after that, you've had a very also big digital, retail marketing career. But that identity switch from going from someone who was in athletics to now going into this marketing realm, how?
Well, I'm still going to play in the NBA.
Oh, okay,
still
right,
one of my,
It's
still one of my goals.
Just for the record, right?
Yeah, no.
But I'm wondering, how does that, how did you kind of handle that kind of switch instead of going back into the athletics world? Because from my perspective, I've been competing in powerlifting for a very long time.
I can tell, man. You're a big boy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I, just like how you equate a lot of your athletic experience to your current successes, I tell people, oh, because I was a powerlifter, I got to be an accountant,
Yep.
hedge fund investor, like all that. Like powerlifting led to that. But there's also this weird moment where after, like, I ended up blowing out my knee after I won the world championship. And then I was like, all right, okay, so what is this identity of me now as an athlete, this like injured guy?
Yeah.
And I constantly still struggle with it of, I'm still training in powerlifting, but I'm not the same as I used to be.
Right.
How did you handle that transition out from this athletic role that was so big for you into like something completely different?
I don't know. I don't think I ever really associated myself. Like, I never got caught up in thinking that I was like, I never associated myself as just an athlete. So I was always doing lots and lots of different things. And I as you asked that question, the one thing I thought about, I'll just say, is I kind of went cold turkey, right? Like, when I started in some serious businesses, I didn't play basketball every day. Like, I didn't play every week. I focused on my new game, right? Which was whatever that business was, or, what I was doing. And so I'm kind of an all-in guy, and, obviously kept working out, and I would play, but basketball was such a big part of my life. I think the way that I dealt with it is I just stopped, right? And I continued to work out, but I certainly wasn't playing, right? Not the way that I was. And I don't know. I just think if you're going to have, like, your goals change. And for me, I never really looked at myself and said, oh, I'm a basketball player. I'm a basketball guy. I just never associated myself like that. Maybe because I never played in the NBA or anything like that.
Not
Maybe
yet.
I would have. Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
But, I think that's that's an important skill for an entrepreneur, right? You've got to be able to quickly compartmentalize parts of your life and be able to go all in when you're in those moments or in those ventures. And so, yeah.
And so after coming back, you joined a company called Flow Networks,
Right.
which eventually got bought out by, I think, Double Click Care.
That's right.
So you were there for about 7 years doing all sorts of roles, I think, but primarily like the marketing realm, like sales and marketing. And then
Sales, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think they also got bought out by Google.
Yeah.
And then you went to shop.com.
Yeah.
And then they eventually got bought out by Market America. And then after that, you said, okay, we're going to come back to Canada. And then you set up shop.ca.
That's right.
And during that time, like you were in two companies that got bought out, and I'm sure you've had equity positions in them. So I feel like you could have just said, okay, well, maybe I'm done with this. Maybe I'm going to retire. What made you want to come back to Canada and for the audience, like you were in New York at that time, so you're coming back to Toronto now to start a completely different company, or maybe even a competitor to shop.com.
Yeah. So lots of questions there. The first thing is that I've been really fortunate, right? Like, I've worked with some amazing people and just had some amazing experiences. I think, look, I don't really, money is very, very important, and we all, want to accumulate it, and we all want to, create big things. But the thing that I've really craved and always am excited about is the actual journey, going back to the Alchemist, right? Like, man, I was a kid in Scarborough, like we talked about, right? I didn't travel anywhere. I mean, I think my first flight was when I was, 16 or 17, maybe later. And so I had this big urge to see the world, and I did that. And I remember being a kid and saying I wanted to live in New York. And then here I was, we sold the company, and as part of that, I got to, move down to New York, work with some amazing people, have the time of my life as a 20-something kid, making a ton of money, but also having a ton of fun. And I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in California, I've lived in Toronto, obviously, in Vancouver now. That's the amazing part, right? It's not how many companies we've sold or how many we've built. I'm most proud of, hey man, I've lived in Australia, Singapore, Toronto, New York, Chicago, California, and now Vancouver. That's awesome, right? Like that to me is priceless. And, look, I think the CV is the CV. You see the companies that have been built, that have been sold, that have been bought back. But, it's an ongoing thing. It is a journey, right? And along the way, you obviously stub your toe a lot of times. It wasn't all roses and butterflies, right? So, but it's been a really, really special journey so far. I think the best is yet to come. We've got got a holding company called drewgreen.ca that's, has 25 companies in it, 25 entrepreneurs that, I've invested in, I'm around, I advise. And, I want to see all those companies have amazing success. And Indochino obviously is the biggest and the one that I'm most focused on. So.
Wow. And after having lived in all these places, I think a big thing that people talk about is the power of the community and environment and helping shape who you are as an entrepreneur, but also as an individual. And I've met other entrepreneurs on my journey who talked about how, we've also talked about ambition and how, moving from Vancouver to Toronto, my idea was, okay, I'm going to move to a city that's bigger with more ambition, more drive.
Yeah.
And then some entrepreneurs I meet in Toronto will say, well, if you want capital, ambition, drive, you got to move down to the States.
Yeah.
But for you, you've kind of done it slightly backwards. You went from Toronto to New York and then now went through the big U.S. cities, and now you're back in Vancouver, which by some people's metrics is a smaller city.
Yeah.
What is your opinion and viewpoint on that? Like, how you can move to different environments, being a small fish in a big pond compared to like being like a big fish in like a small pond?
Yeah, so such a good question. And this was a question you asked previously, just in terms of like, why did I come back to Canada? So really, really clearly, I have 2 kids. They were in New York. We lived in Tribeca and, had a great life, right? But for me, it was really important to raise them Canadian. And I just wanted them, I wanted them to know what it was like to be raised in Canada. And so that, that was the single biggest reason why I started a company back in Canada and we moved back. And I also saw an opportunity to be part of something, right? Like Canada is, I think, the best country in the world. I love the fact that we're multicultural, and all of the things that are associated with Canadians, even the jokes around us being too nice and too polite is amazing, because we are, and that's something to be proud of. And so I wanted to raise my boys Canadian. I wanted the ecosystem for entrepreneurs to change. I wanted access to capital to change. I think there's 5 companies in the history of Canada that have raised, let's call it over 75 million e-commerce companies. And 2 of those 5 were done by me. And so, I feel like I've been a big part of that change. The access to capital 8 years ago was not like it was 1/10, 1/25 of what it is now. And that's really amazing to see all these people come together and all these amazing entrepreneurs, dreaming big. Big fish, big pond, I think would have applied maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. That we live in a global pond now, right? And so whether your business is in the Valley or in Toronto or New York or Vancouver, you still have the same opportunity. I'm not going to ever subscribe to, oh man, we've got this business, in Vancouver, we can't be, as big as anyone else because we're in Vancouver or because we're in Toronto or because we're in Canada. No way, man. It's a global economy, and there are global opportunities, and it's upon us Canadians to think that way, right? To think about, and to dream big about what they want to accomplish. And I see that all over the place, which is just, man, I love it. It's so inspiring.
Spoken like a true ambassador.
Yeah. Vote for it. Yeah.
But no, I totally agree with you. I think like I've been very fortunate to call Toronto the 6th. I think it's the 6th city that I've lived in my own like short life. But
that's amazing.
Thank you. But I think the more, even like when I travel outside of Canada and stuff, I constantly am reminded more that, oh God, yeah, like the place I live is amazing. Like I start seeing like, oh, I can't believe they don't have this, or they don't have like XYZ, and I start missing, at least for me, like Toronto more, than more like Vancouver. But yeah, I think that's something like travel also gives perspective of not so much the desires, but also like being thankful and being grateful for what you have. It's kind of like what you talked about with the piece in The Alchemist, where you actually learn to see the kingdom of where you're actually living, and you learn to stand still sometimes.
Yep, absolutely.
But throughout your journey, you started out as an entrepreneur, so you had all this freedom that you get as an entrepreneur, and then you were an employee for a while, and then you became an entrepreneur, and now you are a CEO of Indochino. What was this kind of motivating kind of factor that propelled you through this journey, going from like entrepreneur to employee, back to entrepreneur, and to now effectively, I guess, kind of a quasi of like employee / entrepreneur?
Yeah, look, I think, well, first with Indochino, it's a restart up, right? The company was pretty much, in a really tenuous situation 4 years ago, and I saw it as an opportunity to try what I call a restart up. The company was losing $600,000 US a month. Had kind of 9% year-over-year growth for 3 years on average, and so it wasn't growing, it wasn't making money, it was losing a lot of money. And by no means was this a cushy opportunity. It was a high risk opportunity. Frankly, probably more high risk than starting a business from scratch, because when you start a business from scratch, all the payables are in your control, right? You're not losing $500,000 or $600,000 a month from day one. And so, this to me, this is a restart up. We reformed a board, we reformed a management team. And, I'm a pretty big owner of this business. So we, I look at this as probably a different entrepreneurial experience than starting a business from scratch like I did, but certainly a very entrepreneurial experience. I don't know if I have a good answer for you in terms of my journey. I always considered whatever opportunity I was in, an opportunity as an entrepreneur, either to learn what others did and how I might be able to apply it to a market or to a segment or to an opportunity. But like I said, and like we talked about, the first business I started was in university. And the second business actually was with my wife. It was a real estate business. We started buying homes. We now have 25 homes across Ontario. And, that business is now, 20 years old. And that business has always been ongoing, no matter what what other things that we've been doing. And so, I think part of the answer is, wanting to live in New York and wanting to have that experience. And DoubleClick was this just giant, big startup, right? Filled with super, super smart people, frankly, changing an industry, right? Changing the marketing industry. And so, I was always drawn to the experiences. That's I guess maybe the best answer. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really fortunate that there's been some really great experiences.
And with those great experiences, I think in one of the past interviews you talked about how big learning you had was the importance of picking the right partners. And so given that learning, what have you seen as the pattern that works out for you? Is it just listening to a gut feeling, or is it knowing someone for a set amount of time? Like, what kind of patterns do you look for in
I don't think you're gonna, the time doesn't necessarily define, knowing everything about a person. I think you truly have to go through really good times and really bad times to know someone. And look, I think it's intuition. And sometimes your intuition's right. Mine's luckily mostly right, but I've been wrong too, right? I've picked the wrong partners, or I've, put my faith in the wrong people. But it is a key, key ingredient to success at any level, in any ecosystems, kind of going back to sports, right? Like, a management team is like a basketball team, right? And everybody has a role. Everybody has, a job to do in order to win the championship or to win the game or to win the tournament. And, we've got here at Indochino, we just got an amazing, management team. One of our CFO just had a baby this morning, and
whoa,
shout out to Morgan Jr. But, that's something you should have seen our stand up this morning. I mean, everybody was just so happy for her, and again, that's what's amazing. Mm-hmm. I don't have the secret sauce or the secret advice about picking the right partners. I don't think time is the one. I think, you got to go with your gut. You got to trust, and you got to stick it out through tough times. I mean, probably my greatest fault is my loyalty, right? I'm extremely loyal and sometimes believe in people too much, and that's cost me, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't mind. I'm going to stay that way.
And in terms of advice, as we hit this final leg of our interview, what kind of advice do you wish you had when you were 25, the 25-year-old Drew?
Take it easy. Take it easy. No, I don't know. I said that first because I think what I've seen and what I've experienced, especially these last 5 years, is the longer that I think about things and the more time I take to contemplate the right answer, the better the outcome is, right? And so patience is the word, right? I've really developed patience. My wife would laugh, but I didn't have a lot of patience in my 20s. I wanted to do it today. I wanted to do it now. I wanted to, I wanted it all to just, and I'd work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, whatever it took. But what I've really learned is patience. What I've really learned is just how important, family is, and I don't know. I think it's a little bit, it's hard to give advice to entrepreneurs without actually working with them, because every company, every venture is different. And, the right advice comes from when you actually know what they're going through or what they're trying to do. Maybe one thing that's just, always constant in our house is just the need to work hard. You can't, I don't care who you are, I don't care how smart you are, and I'm not that smart, but you can't do anything unless you work really hard. And you gotta do that day in and day out.
Excellent. All right, Drew. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me. And thanks so much. Very grateful.
All right, guys, if you want to apply to Indochino, go to Indochino.com. And if you want custom suits, check that out as well.
I love it. Yeah.
All right.
Take care, man. Take care.
All right. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope the story was inspiring to you. Hopefully it also helped you expand your perspectives. Hopefully it also made you question the default path that you might have been going on, or the default beliefs you might have had. And maybe now it'll make you even think about doing something about it, doing something different, maybe challenging yourself, being courageous. Who knows? But regardless, I'm really happy that you took some time out of your day to listen to this fantastic story with my guest. And if you would like to somehow, in some way, contribute and help support the podcast, and maybe even just be part of the community that I'm trying to build with the greater OMD Ventures platform, really think about being a stakeholder in the platform. And the quick way to do that is to go to my website, oldmandan.com, and go to the stakeholders page. I believe it's oldmandan.com/stakeholder. And the link is also down below. And that's how you can figure out how you can subscribe, follow to get more updates on the free content, but at the same time also donate, and donate by actually just buying me a coffee. That's just how I put it. And you can buy me a coffee a month, coffee a week, or coffee every day of the year. And think about it as the way that, if you wanted to chat with me, you might just bring me out for coffee and buy me a coffee. Or if you wanted to bring one of my guests out to chat, you might buy them a coffee. So just think of it as I'm the service that's doing that for you, so you can just pay me in coffees. Don't worry, everything will still be free. It would just really help if you would like to show your support this way, so that I can use the coffee money to buy myself actual coffees, and also to buy my guests actual coffees, and use the leftover money to actually grow the platform, as well as even keep it operationally alive as well, because all this isn't really free, and it does take a lot of time to build it as well as operate it, and hopefully grow it further. So your support would be amazing if you would like to contribute. And so just check out the website, go to the stakeholders page, and read the different kind of benefits you might even get as a stakeholder. All right, thank you.